Welcome folks, Jason Hoppy here to walk you through how to take your hand-drawn artwork and turn it into vector shapes in Illustrator. And this is going to require the image trace panel, which is under your window menu. And there it is, image trace. And what I did is I opened up this JPEG directly in Illustrator. Now you can create a new file and then you can place your scanned image in by going under the File Place window, or you can just simply go open and navigate to your saved file that you want to open and bring it right into Illustrator. Now with this particular drawing, there is a few extra things that are outside the area that I want to go ahead and render. So when you select your object, you should have your control bar up here showing you a whole bunch of information. If you don't have your control bar, go into the window menu and show the control, or you can go into your properties panel here and you have some of the options that we're going to be using here under the quick actions. I prefer the control bar because it's got more stuff in it and I'm used to the control bar. So when we have our image selected with our selection tool, I'm going to click on the crop image button in the control bar, and this is going to allow me to crop out any additional information that I don't want to include in my image. And once you get that crop area, click the apply button and it will crop your image. Now in the image trace panel, what I want to do is I want to get this into vector. So when you call up the image trace panel, click on the preview button at the bottom, and it may tell you that your image is fairly large, and we could go in and reduce the quality of this image here. It's going to take a little bit of extra processing power to do that, but I'm going to continue ahead with this anyway. So here we've got different modes of how we can render our artwork. Right now, this is black and white, and I do want it just to be black and white. I don't want it to have shades of gray in there. So I'm going to keep the black and white mode here. They have all different presets here, black and white, logo, sketched art, that kind of thing. So sketched art or black and white logo is what we want. Now, all these defaults do is they just kind of dial in a couple settings here to make it look really good. The second we change any of these settings, the defaults will no longer be the defaults. But in this case, we definitely want sketched art or black and white logo in order to be able to see our translation here. I'm going to click the advanced twirly here and open this up and explain to you what everything does here. Now, the threshold here, you can see if we go to less or more, again, it takes a little bit of time as it redraws here. This is basically, in very simple terms, like the exposure, okay? So more, you're going to get more saturation because it's like exposing it more. So I'm going to set that threshold all the way up because, oops, too far, okay? You can see what happens. You can go all the way and then everything turns black. So I want to get this as high as I can. And every time you make an adjustment, it's going to go ahead and re-render. So a very high resolution file may be a little bit of frustration while you wait for this to process. So the paths are basically the fidelity of the paths. Do you want paths that are very accurate, or you want paths that are very inaccurate or low quality? So if you see what happened here on low, the paths are kind of chunky and they're kind of, a little bit, I would call them lazy. So I'm going to set the paths all the way to high fidelity, and I'm going to wait for this to re-render, and then I get much more of this hand-drawn quality to it, and it looks less lazy and less melted. Under the corner section here, if I ramp down the corners and I do less, that's going to go ahead and pay attention to the corners less, and if I set that to be more, then that's going to go ahead and pay more attention to little bits and pieces here. And the hand-drawn quality of this is what I want to repeat. Now I'm going to zoom in close here because I want to show you what noise is. And maybe go back to the corners here and you can see, if I set the corners down low, you're going to get a little bit more rounded information. Of course, you're going to get less corners because it says less. And you can also hover over these and it's going to tell you this in your little tool hint. A lot of times people don't hover and wait to see that, but it definitely does that. So I'm going to set the corners back up to more because I like that little more crispity look around those edges. Now, noise is interesting. Now, noise is here because you may have scanned something in and you can see all the little dots in the background. Those dots in the background were just things that were on the paper, things that were on the scanner glass, just little bits and pieces that you may not want. If you reduce the amount of noise, it's going to go ahead and it's going to remove a whole bunch of or it's going to show more of the little bits and pieces. If I ramp the noise all the way up here, what it's going to do is it's going to take away a lot of that detail. Now, this could be something that you like, something that you don't like. But keep in mind when you take out the noise and you go all the way up for a very clean look, you are also removing a whole bunch of information inside here. So the fine cross-hatching, which really makes this lettering kind of cool, goes away when you ramp the noise up. So be careful of that. When it comes to creating an outline here, you definitely want to have filled shapes. You don't want strokes. If you go and do strokes here, it's going to take a while. Strokes are going to do the weirdest thing. And I turn off my fills here, and it's going to look like a whole bunch of uniform worms, okay? So I've never seen an example, unless you want to make it look like bugs have crawled through wood and eaten their way through. I wouldn't use strokes at all. I would keep it on fills and no strokes. And again, it takes some processing power here to go ahead and do this every time we make a change. Snapping the curves to lines takes slightly curved lines and tries to make them straighter. Again, not much of a difference when you're doing hand-drawn lettering. And then the very key important thing is ignore white. And what ignore white does is any place where there's white on here, it's going to ignore. If you don't choose the ignore white, you will get, like in this cavity of the A here, you will get a white container. If you're trying to put this on a different colored background, that is not what you want. You can always add white to the background afterwards, but I always suggest to ignore the white. Now, once you're done with this, the confusing thing about image trace is you think you're done, but the problem is that it's still an image. So what you have to do is you actually have to turn this into vector. Now, you're seeing the results of what Illustrator is giving you, but it hasn't actually been converted to vector. Now, the image trace panel, surprisingly enough, has no little drop-down menu or cheese grater right here, okay? And there's no other place that says, turn this into vector. So you either have to go to your Properties panel and click Expand, or go into your Control bar and click Expand, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you have not done this before. And Expand is basically saying, take what I see in the preview of the image trace and actually expand it into vector. Once I expand it into vector, you'll see that that all comes around. Now, each and every one of these items is its own vector shape. If I go to my Command Y or Control Y and go into my preview mode, you can see that I have all these little bits and pieces, and now it's all vector. Now, to go in and clean up all your content here, there's a couple different ways. I could just go in with my direct selection tool, and I could just simply hover over and select this. Now, when you do this, always hit delete twice. And the reason why you hit delete twice is that if you come in and you have selected something and you hit delete once, you may have only partially selected an area, and when you hit delete once, you end up with an open shape down here. But when you go in and you select something and hit delete twice, it's going to delete that what you have selected and then the rest of that shape. Now, this is going to take a little bit of time by going in and selecting those areas and hitting delete. Okay? And you could do that, and people do, that's fine. But here's one of the issues. See this line that was drawn here, kind of as a line that was going to connect, or kind of like a guideline? If I go in and I hit delete twice, you notice how I just deleted all of that S. Well, I don't like having open shapes kind of hanging out here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my eraser tool. And the eraser tool is awesome, because now you can just come in here, and whatever you touch, you can erase. Now, what I like about the eraser tool is that if you only partially erase something, let me show you this. If you come in and partially erase something like that, and you don't erase it completely, it will go in and it will actually close that shape. It doesn't leave an open shape like the direct selection tool does. If you'd like to make your eraser larger or smaller, the shortcut is right bracket makes it bigger, left bracket makes it smaller. You could always double click on your eraser tool and change the size here. The problem is that changing the size here, it doesn't really show you what size the cursor is, so you can guess and just go up or down here and hope that you get the right size. That's why I like the right and the left bracket. So right bracket's going to make it bigger for the larger areas as you go through, and then right bracket is going to make it smaller to go ahead and tuck anything in. In the areas where you'd like to go in and get rid of this little extra pieces here, the eraser tool is fantastic because if I go in and I simply click here and get rid of it, this shape is closed right here. That path continues on. So the eraser tool erases, and whatever it leaves always closes the shape back up. It's kind of like it's self-sealing. Nice little feature. So this is my overall look and feel. Now I notice that it's a bit light. It's a bit lightweight, and I'd like to go ahead and fill this in a little bit more. I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go under the Edit menu and I'm going to find out this cool feature called Paste in Place. Okay? I could also use Paste in Front as well, but Paste in Place pastes it exactly in the same location. So if I do that several times, and I'm just using my shortcut, which is Shift-Command-V and pasting in place, it will again try to double up upon itself, which is kind of cool. And what that does is it'll kind of stack on top of each other. Okay? Now if I go into my Layers panel, you'll see that I have lots of groups stacked on top of each other and kind of overlaying these things here. And I could select these groups. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select all of the groups, and in my Properties panel, I'm going to merge those all together into a shape. And basically by stacking them on top of each other, it makes all those little line weights just slightly fatter. Okay? Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. So this is kind of a cool thing to do. Now, if you did want to beef up the line weight here, you could always select everything and go in and add a stroke to your objects here. And if I just go in and I bump up the stroke right here, there it is, and I can add a little bit of stroke to it. Now, you do lose some of the originality of this by going and applying a stroke to this whole thing. Okay? Now, you'll notice one interesting thing. When I went to my stroke panel to go ahead and pick a color, there was no color. And it's like, why does this happen? This happens when you open an image directly in Illustrator. There are no colors in the swatch panel. If I were to have created a new file and then placed the image in, I would have my complete colors in my swatch panel. Just kind of a cool thing to have. So this is what I have overall by going in and adding a slight stroke to the whole thing if I wanted to after merging them together. Now, in order to make this even better, a good scan is going to make all the difference. So I'm going to jump over to Photoshop right here, and here's the original scan, and I'd like to just beef this up a little bit. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to rotate this whole thing counterclockwise. And in order to make this a little bit more saturated, there's no real way to saturate this in Illustrator. So I'm pretty much stuck with the quality of my scan. So this is one of the things that you do have to go outside of Illustrator in order to clean up your image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to do a very simple adjustments, Levels, which is Command or Control L. And with Levels, what I'm going to do is I'm going to darken the darks by coming down here with the shadow slider. And you can see if I darken the darks there, it's going to darken those up. And if I lighten the lights there, it will kind of clean up the background a little bit right there. Okay? So this is what I get. Now, I didn't do a whole lot here, but here's the cool trick. Okay? If I'd like to beef all this information up, I'm going to go over to my Layers panel, and you can find your Layers panel under your window here. In your Layers panel, you're going to click the lock and you're going to unlock this layer. Now, right-click to the right of the layer name and simply duplicate this layer, and we're going to click OK. With this duplicate layer, I'm going to go to my layer blending mode that says Normal, and I'm going to choose Multiply. And what that's going to do is that's going to give me a little bit of beefiness here. Okay, now you can't see very much, but see what the multiply does? You can see a little bit of those pixels kind of gaining right there. And with this set to multiply, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to duplicate this layer on top of itself in multiply mode here several times. And you could do this 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 times. And every time you do this, it just gains a little bit of information here. Okay. Now, it's not a whole lot, but you could do this. Now what I would do is I would then go and do a save as. And here I'm going to just save this as like a basic JPEG, which is going to merge all of these together. And then I'm going to call this saturated type. And with this is a little bit better so that when I bring this into Illustrator, I have a little bit more saturation in here. Okay. Now this was a fairly light illustration when I brought this in. So I've got some of the very originals here that were done before they were scanned in. So this is going to actually work a whole lot better. So I'm going to go under my image menu, under my image rotation, and I'm going to rotate this clockwise. And now what I want to do is I want to perform a levels on this. I'm going to go under image, adjustment, levels, and I'm going to adjust the dark areas here, and I'm going to adjust the light areas here. And you can see with the light areas, I can come in and I can adjust the light areas to get the lightness here, and the shadow areas to get the darkness. Okay. Now this is a little bit tricky because this was just simply shot with a cell phone, so we've got some problems with the quality of the background here. So you can adjust the lightness and darkness overall by using your midtone slider here and getting that midtone way down, and then adjusting your shadow slider up. So you get a lot more of your background here, and this is about as good as I'm going to get here with my levels right there. So with this, I can now take this into Illustrator, and I'm going to save this right here, and I'm just going to call this my adjusted one so that I have that. So better contrast in here. And now I'm going to jump over to Illustrator, and I'm just simply going to go under File, Open. I'm going to grab that image that I had adjusted. There it is. And it comes in very large, so I'm just going to hold down my Shift and my Option or Alt key and scale that down together. Okay. Now, the background here, there's a little hint of the background color, okay, and that scale of the pattern. So if I go and click on the preview here, it's going to tell me again, okay, this is a high-res image. Now, I'm tracing this in black and white, so I don't have to really pay as attention to the background here. And the way this works is pretty simple, okay? Anything that is going to be 50% black or darker is what's really going to show up here. So I don't have as much issue with that background if I've lightened it substantially. By threshold, I can go in and basically underexpose or overexpose, okay? So if I go low, basically it's giving me more exposure and making it brighter. And then I can come in here and I can do more or less exposure. Now you got to be careful because obviously the background's starting to come in here. So this is one of the tricks if you take a picture with your cell phone. Make sure that it's lit correctly or you get continuous tone. Getting a scanner is great, but sometimes the scanner, you do too much with a scanner and you start to lose your content. So here, while it's not perfect and we start to lose some of this, you can see how we can kind of get by through the background. Now, a perfect scenario would be get a flatbed scanner, scan it, it's perfect, get it nice and saturated to work this way. But I just want to show you some of the things that you're going to come up against when you go in and quickly snap a picture of something. Again, choose the ignore white on here so that you don't get your white background here. And keep in mind that you can always go back in and you can render this differently for each section of type. You notice how the book of and traffic kind of gets lost. But I don't have to go in and just render it once and accept what I have. I could always go back in and I could render this, then I could open this back up again, and I could crop my image and pay attention to only this section. So if I don't have the perfect image going in, I can render it differently. I don't have to just simply accept what I have. Click the expand button, and then I can go in with my eraser tool or with my content or my selection tool, and I could go in and render this whole thing. I'm going to grab my eraser, make that larger by using my right bracket, and just erase all that content that I don't want right there and clean it up. There it is. Now if I wanted to re-render this, I would simply just erase the things that I didn't like, and then I could save this, open up my image again, and either crop my image or pay attention to only those areas that I would like to go ahead and render, and go from there. Then, of course, this being all vector, I can just grab my content right here, and with my direct selection tool, I could then move this all around, and I could take everything here with my selection tool, and if I wanted to rotate this a little bit more, clean that up, there it is. So just a really quick overview on how you can take your hand-lettered creations, use image trace with a little bit of Photoshop, and go in there and kind of clean this up. Thanks for watching.